Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm Maria Giudice and I'm supervisor in the AA PhD program. And today we will be showing you a short introduction to who we are and what we do in our program. And throughout this session, of course, you can please feel free to send questions via the chat function. We have our fantastic admission team that will try to address all these questions throughout the session via the chat. Of course, at the end of the session, there will be a little bit of time to answer a few key questions that might be of interest for many of you. And additional questions will always be open, of course, to be answered afterwards by email after the event. So the AA PhD program, what is it? What do we do? We work in partnership with the Open University, so we are an affiliated research center to the Open University that is actually the organism that basically validates our PhD program. It's a PhD program that in general lasts 3 years, so you would be with us for 3 to 4 years actually while you complete your thesis. And it's a full-time actually PhD program. That means that you can dedicate about 1 day per week to another activity that could be teaching, for instance, or working, but we would expect you actually to commit most of your time actually to your research. We offer 2 specific types of research actually here in school. One is a PhD in architecture by thesis, and the other one is a PhD in architectural design. They are just 2 variations of the same type of research. Essentially, it's a research that actually digs deep into architectural knowledge, architecture as a form of knowledge, but the 2 modalities are slightly different in the sense that the PhD in architecture by thesis is a written thesis, is a classical PhD product, if you want. It's a book. While the PhD in architectural design has a strong visual component or design component that is non-text based, that can be based in computation, for instance, or traditional design or modeling, but let's say that it's a non-text based component. And we have a fantastic team of supervisors and director of studies who can actually help you to decide whether your research would fit better in one typology or the other. So who are we? We are essentially a PhD committee that is made out of our supervisors and the students that are a fundamental part of the school community and take really an active role in also organizing actually the PhD program. The committee is chaired by Dr. Yannas, that is in fact actually the person who oversees all of our PhD activities. If you enroll at the AA, you will essentially have a relationship with 2 main teachers, one a director of studies and the other one a supervisor who will follow you actually in your studies. This said, we are a large team of tutors and teachers here, and it's very normal for us actually to be exchanging feedback between different supervisory teams. So it doesn't mean that actually if you work primarily with one director of studies, you cannot also have feedback sessions with the other director of studies. And just to give you an idea of who a few of our director of studies are, and this is not exhaustive, Mark Cousins is actually the head of the History and Theory course in the Part 1 and 2 diploma here at the AA. Marina Lathuri is also the director of the History and Critical Thinking master's degree. Mike Weinstock actually runs the MTech program, and Pier Vittorio Aureli is also a Part 2 design unit master. So you see that just by giving you an idea of these 4 supervisors, what I want to show you is 2 things. First of all, that these 4 people have a broad range of expertise that goes from associative design to history and critical thinking to project, to actually urban design. And the second thing is that each of these individuals actually has a strong link to the school community and the school culture by working in a diverse range of roles in school, from the diploma to the postgraduate studies to the PhD and so on and so forth. Which means that actually we see really like the research culture at the AA as something that is not really pigeonholed in just one format, but is really something that we share throughout the school community. So, how do we work? Well, actually, we all know that the PhD is a highly individual pursuit, is really about digging deep into something that is interesting for you for 3 or 4 years. But we know also at the same time that research is never a purely individual thing. It's also something that has to be shared with peers that are going to give you feedback, that are going to give you ideas and content very often. So for us, it's very important to organize symposiums. This is one of the last symposiums actually that we organized, what is PhD by Design, that was run by students, in fact, collecting a range of presentations from PhD supervisors that were trying to give their own position on what it means actually to develop a research by design. We also run seminars. We run actually a quite broad range of seminars that can cater to different students in different moments actually of their career, but also different interests. As you can see actually in this image, they are always a very interesting moment actually of exchange of ideas, of knowledge, and so on and so forth. They are really crucial for us. And just to give you an idea of what kind of seminar we are going to run in the first term of this academic year, we are going to have a seminar on scientific method and design science with Michael Weinstock. We are going to have another seminar actually on research methods with Mark Cousins, a seminar with Marina Lathuri about history and language, and finally with me and Pier Vittorio Aureli, a seminar essentially on urban design through the theme of domestication. And finally, we also run students' presentations throughout all the terms in which actually the candidates really have a chance to show their work in progress to their peers, but also to critics from outside. So these three scales, the symposiums, the seminars, and the presentations are extremely important. They run throughout all the three terms, and although they are broadly organized in teams or clusters, as I said before, we really see the school culture as something that is not divided in sectors or in chairs, but there's a kind of continuum of knowledge that we try to share as much as possible. The kind of thesis that we do that we work on are as broad as our interests are and as diverse as our interests are. Just to show you two recently completed theses, we have this amazing thesis actually completed in 2015 by Elif Erdin, that is actually now a tutor in the MTech program and also PhD supervisor, who was trying actually to work out what's the relationship between generative processes and the process of designing actually towers. So as you can see, this is really a PhD by design that worked through associative methods to try to make sense of actually what it means to design a tower today. Or we have this other thesis actually completed in 2018, also by design, in which designer, writer, and activist Samane Moafi was actually trying to come up with a set of very proactive pamphlets that were geared towards giving everyday population, actually normal people, tools to change their domestic environment. And this was focused particularly on the case of domestic environments in Iran. That is actually the topic of Samane's thesis. Just to give you two examples of actually how a thesis can work through a design process, either through computation or through graphics and traditional design, and try to actually put forward the research not only through text but also through other components. And then we have a broad range of theses actually that cover diverse topics such as, for instance, the rhetorics of the desert as internalizing territory, this is by Alvaro Velasco, or the dissolution of the body image through architectural design, this is by Tatiana Crossley, or actually the way in which gardens are used and instrumentalized as a tool ultimately for urban design on a large scale by Olivia Marra. And fundamentally, I guess that the basic question that we ask ourselves and that we ask you is why to enroll in a PhD program, and actually what this experience would bring to you, and eventually what you would bring actually to the school community. We essentially believe in actually in architecture as a form of knowledge. This means that in fact we see a very great range of topics in which actually this research on architectural design can be carried forward, from computation to text to historical research to traditional design. And we feel that actually what you would be acquiring in 3 years with us are the skills to bring forward your ideas to the level of international discourse at large, so outside of school, essentially. What we can try to actually teach you and develop, hopefully with you, is the way in which actually your ideas gain a solid basis. They are translated, in fact, actually into a piece of work that could be design or could be text-based, that can be communicated, discussed, and debated at large with the architectural community. And now, actually, I have with me two people who can probably give you a much better idea of what kind of experience actually a PhD candidate has. First of all, I have here to my right Milad, who is now in his second or third year, right? Third year, developing a thesis in the PhD by Design program. And to my left, I have Sayan, who has just graduated right now. She's received her PhD now in June, and who is now enjoying actually the life of a postdoctoral researcher. I think what is amazing about these two theses is that they are two very different takes on what a PhD is, and also on the instrumentality that the PhD has to build up a career for yourself afterwards. Because Sayan is a researcher, Milad is already a teacher, a tutor actually here in school, so they are building for themselves a portfolio of experiences that goes even beyond their thesis into actually making for themselves actually a career in research and in academia in different ways. So I would now give the floor to Milad.
Thank you, Maria. As Maria said, I'm in the third year of my research right now, doing research under directorship of MPhil Weinstock. And I would like to just flip through a few slides that I collected from my work and my colleagues to show you how we do research and how we progress our argument through design, drawings, and other means of research. So if we deal with complex problems across a range of scales, and for that there is no single solution. Rather, we deal with solution sets. But we don't just generate morphological variation. Rather, we also look into numerical values, compare them in a statistical way, and reframe our argument back again. And we often face failures in our design simulations and computational experiments, and we reframe the structure. Also, we situate ourselves within the different disciplines of computation, architecture, biology, and of course, abstracting principles of different disciplines into architectural field is progress which we take them, abstract them mathematically, and then use them in architectural design process. As I mentioned, we generate different simulations, different statistical analysis, visual drawings to test that argument throughout our research progress. And then not even just the forms we're interested in, we're also interested in numerical data coming out of the simulations. We conduct statistical analysis, we, as I said, failure, we succeed, and then we move on. We also publish our findings in peer-reviewed journals and conferences. For example, this one is the one that we recently published in International Journal of Architecture Computing with me, myself, Mohammed, Ayman, another PhD candidate in the AA, and also with the supervision of MPhil Weinstock, our supervisor. Not even in the journals and peer-reviewed conferences, we also publish our works in a broader audience of computational design users, and we teach these computational engines and methodology that we explore in our research through our different schools. We conduct workshops in order to test the systems that we develop throughout our research. So this was a very brief kind of like introduction of how we do work and how I personally do research. Thank you.
Thank you, Milad.
Hi everyone, I'm Cyan. As just Maria mentioned, I guess my experience represents a pretty straightforward way of a research-oriented path. So I first joined the AA at the MPhil Projective Cities program, then went on to do PhD by design at City Architecture program here. I graduated a few months ago, currently work as a postdoc research associate in London. So in general, for me, what the AA PhD offers is really a platform with all sorts of potentials. So for me, it is really the students that need to take the initiative to always actively think about what to do, how to do, and who to do it with. So in my case, I've taken the opportunity of my PhD at the AA to develop collaborations with various parties in China, from universities to public and media platforms, to industry and to government bodies, which all build upon and augment to my research work. So the daily activity of AA PhD, I would say, take place at a domestic scale. We're a small community and we dwell in a very small building, but it operates at a truly international level. So that is, of course, also the vibe of the school as a whole. So now maybe we can show a short video, which I hope I can talk a little bit about my thesis to give you just a very brief sense of what kind of study conducted here. Let's see if the video works. Yeah, so
Just a second, we are loading the video. Yes.
Yeah, just 1 second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Full screen.
Yeah. And yeah, can you see the video now? Nope.
Shall we try with a different player? I think maybe while we load the video, I think what was amazing about Sayan's research is that...
Yeah, probably I can show a little bit of this, because I'm doing a PhD by design, so I produced both a written thesis in a way like that, and also in a way sort of visual thesis. Okay, it's fine, maybe I can talk with, so that, yeah. Is it working now? Oh, there's something there. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, great. So it's a PhD by design, but the design component is not about providing solutions at all, rather seen as a contribution to the research framed by questions of design, hence research by design. So as you can see on the screen, drawing plays really an essential role. So by extraction and transformation, diagrammatic architecture and urban drawings are able to convey and produce knowledge for design. So this continuous score you see on the screen right now is itself a visual thesis. It illustrates a journey from an urban center all the way to a rural home, cutting across various scales. It aims to blend and condense into a single drawing the urban and rural spheres, existing and proposed spatial constructs, as well as people's lifestyles, behaviors, and mentalities. So by further constructing moments of continuation, transformation, contradiction, and disruption in the drawing, the score intensifies the confrontation between various threads developed in the written thesis, and is thus a critical method of communication and provocation. While my thesis is entitled Territory, Settlements, Households, a Project of Rural China, but why rural? In the discourse of architecture, I guess it wouldn't be going too far to say that the modern movement was largely aligned with the processes of industrialization and urbanization, and thus has its roots in urbanity. The rural is, however, considered not just economically, but also culturally and intellectually underdeveloped. So what is rurality? In the Chinese context, rurality can be understood as an elastic form of association. Rurality is not about whether or not people live in the countryside or the city. Rather, it's about a distinct form of living arrangements and social organization. Ultimately, it's about how people organize themselves and associate with others. So for example, the dissolved households, as we see at the end of the score, emerging from the families of China's floating population, manifest a self-organized support system underpinned by associational relationships. So why this matters? We see today the disappearing nuclear family, the disappearing traditional idea of domesticity, as well as an aging society. So what arises is the need for intergenerational living and the need for new social networks of care. So in this sense, I argue rurality anticipates actually some of the global discussions around alternative types of social relationships beyond the family norm. Now maybe can we go back to the video? Because now I want to, this is just showing the end of my thesis, the household level transformations that I developed as a design component, but really as a way to push forward the arguments of rurality rather than solution. So now what you see on the screen is the current project I'm doing. It's just to say a little bit things about this, because I want to show how the research work has been taken further beyond the PhD thesis. This project is entitled Collective Forms in China, supported by the British Academy. So through my PhD work, I've come to realize how collective subjectivities are fundamental and constructive to both China's social and spatial organizations, while in the West, an individual subjectivity is fundamental to one's identity in society. While in China, shared spaces are really collective spaces, which facilitate everyday activities for a group living closely around it, and through which associations between individuals and the collective are reinforced. Despite similar appearance, the collective space differs in conception and function from a Western public space and its association with a public sphere and public functions in a political sense. So why this matters? Because conventional public spaces are increasingly commercialized, homogenized, and dysfunctional. The Chinese activity-based collective space may offer an important alternative to understanding how shared spaces can function. So I hope just give you a brief sense of the work that's been done here and can be done taking forward.
Thank you so much, actually, Sayan and Milad. I think what is really fantastic of your thesis is how diverse they are. They are diverse in the context, actually, that they look at, but also in the methodologies. But both share really this deep commitment to rigor and thoroughness, whatever you do. And I think what is great for me about what we do here is that everybody can have their very, very specific individual point of view, as long as they develop a really strong, clear methodology that can then be shared and discussed and debated with others. Now, the two theses that you have seen both share an equal commitment to design in different ways, through computation or through drawing research, for instance. But we also run other types of theses that have to do, for instance, with writing and with historical research. I just want to give you one example. This is a thesis completed a couple of years ago by Alejandra Celedon. Alejandra is an architect, writer, and curator, actually, from Chile, who, as you can see, did a very traditional, actually, PhD thesis, meaning actually a historical, theoretical, and critical, actually, written investigation. This is also something that we welcome. Just to give you an idea of actually who Alejandra is, Alejandra recently curated the Chilean pavilion at the Architecture Biennale in Venice that received really rave reviews. And I think her time here at the IEA was definitely important in building up her profile as a curator, as a teacher, and as a writer, and was definitely an important stepping stone in her career that then brought her to where she is today, actually, in her work. So as you can see, actually, we really cater to a broad range of different interests, different methodologies, and different types of final product, from the book, and here you can see probably a few of the books that we produced actually in the last few years, to the video, to the computational model, and so on and so forth. And I really want to stress actually what both Milad and Sayan said, that is actually that our work is produced not to stay in here, but to be communicated, shared, and debated actually with people out there through conferences, through symposia, through lectures. We are all very, very engaged with the architectural debate at large, and that's exactly what we're looking for in prospective PhD candidates. Somebody with a strong position, somebody with commitment, somebody with a passion with architecture, and really with great intellectual generosity to want to actually share their ideas with their peers. It is basically us. And we now probably have a bit of time to answer a few questions that arrived through the chat, maybe questions that are shared by everybody. They are not letting us know anything, but I do know that some questions arrived already in advance. One of the questions actually that we received is how many days per week are you supposed to be in school? Well, this is a full-time PhD program, so in theory you should be here every day. Other activities are limited as per program guide to maximum 1 day per week. Of course, this is something negotiable in the case in which, for instance, you teach in school, and I think actually maybe Milad has the best experience as he's doing it right now. But the rest of the time, we have a fantastic PhD studio. It's a beautiful two-room, actually, studio that is here in this building at the last floor with fantastic views over Bedford Square. Where everybody actually has their own desk and chest of drawers where you can leave your computer, you can leave your reading materials, and so on and so forth. So you are encouraged, in fact, actually to spend here most of the time. The IEA has one of the most outstanding architectural libraries, actually, not only in the UK, but I would say in Europe at large. So that's also a place where most of our PhD candidates actually spend quite a bit of time. We, of course, have also fabrication laboratories and computer laboratories. That could be also one of the places where you would want to spend a lot of time, actually, should your PhD bring you in that direction, in that type of research. So essentially, we would really ask you to commit for 3 years to your research and to us, essentially. Another question actually that we received earlier on is what to present, in fact, actually when you apply for the program. Well, this really depends, because as you might know, there are 2 things actually that you have to send us. One is essentially a portfolio, so something that is about your past, your history. And the second thing that we ask you to send us is a proposal, so something that is about your future, where do you want to go next. Of course, I see, and I think all the supervisors would agree with that, we see these 2 things as linked. Because of course we want to see how you build for the future something that is built on your previous experience. That doesn't mean that you are coming actually to the program with all the skills 100% ready, and I guess no, also in your program probably there are quite a bit of skills that have to be built up,
yes,
actually together with the supervisors or other tutors, specialist tutors who might come in. But at the same time, if you're interested in doing something, for instance, that might have to do with the urban scale as your project, for instance, it would be great to see something in your portfolio that lets us see that you are building up this experience in layers, actually, as you come up through your school career. At the same time, if, for instance, you are interested in something that might have to do more with theoretical critical research like Alejandra that I showed you earlier, it would be really great to see a piece of writing from you or something, let's say, that lets us have a sense of who you are as an architect or as a writer, as a researcher. Of course, we are not looking for perfect, we are looking for strong interest, we are looking for commitment, passion, and all of that, of course, will have to come through your portfolio. Again, it's not about having all the skills, we are here to teach you those skills that you don't have yet, but I think it would be great to see a strong link between your portfolio and your PhD proposal. In terms of the proposal itself, we all know that the proposal is never finished. We go on working on the proposal basically until we hand in, and there are things that can change because that's the nature of research. We have to remain open to serendipity and accidents. And as Milad said before, to failures. I think that's the best thing about the PhD is to embrace the fact that actually research might be about failure sometimes and about restarting better and stronger. So the statement really that you send in, again, is something on which we'll work for a while with your supervisors actually after you enter school. But we would really like to see a position, we would like to see an idea, and we would like to see that you are able to contextualize that idea in the discourse. So that as much as you are passionate about it, maybe even obsessed, that this thing is not purely a personal obsession, but it's also a personal obsession that you are also able to bring out in the world and discuss. And of course, then we will take it from there. It will change many, many times. The title will change, the content will change, and that's the beauty, I think, of a PhD research. But at the same time, it would be really good to send us a strong signal when you send us your proposal. So in a way, a portfolio and a proposal that kind of talk to each other, that are understandable, that are clear, and that are readable. And other than that, something that could be very useful would be to contact the admission office, to contact us as supervisors, also for further insight, to contact, in fact, actually the current and previous PhD candidates, and all their CVs are online, so you can actually check out what they are doing. Because as usual, as Sayan said before, really the insight comes from the people who make the school that are mostly the PhD candidate. We have about 28 continuing PhD candidates actually this year, and a cohort of something like 6 to 8 new PhD candidates who are starting right now. So there are always between 30 and 40 actually PhD candidates around in school. We tend to graduate something like, again, 5 to 8 people per year. So that means that we are really like a community that is tight and reasonably small, but not that small after all, because we have also about 15 supervisors all in all. So all of it together, we are a group of about 40 to 50 researchers who really try to share as much as possible the researches. As I said before, we have a few different directions in which actually we suggested you could organize your research that go from associative design to urban design to critical thinking and so on and so forth. But at the same time, we are really one community trying to share as much as possible our interests as we do through this number of seminars and symposia that I was saying before. And I actually urge you to check out the symposium that we have actually this Friday from 2 onwards, and Milad is one of the organizers, on the table of contents of the PhD, which I think is one of the most debated hot topics in research. So on my part, this is all. I would leave the last word actually to Sayan and Milad if you have some suggestion to give to our prospective PhD candidates.
Sayan, please.
I guess I guess my experience of doing the PhD here really, on the one hand, is I enjoy the great autonomy that every researcher has, like at the school, and freedom to really explore by themselves. But on the other hand, the program here, or AA as a school, is super well connected to the overall world. So here you have the both aspects that I think need to produce actual rigorous and really innovative research.
Well, if I want to make it very briefly, the opportunity that AA gave me in order to meet new colleagues, new people, new ideas, definitely helped me out to directing my research. And it's just ideas and amazing stuff is floating around within the building, and this is just something that I found it very fascinating.
Great. I think that this was really the best picture that we can give you of who we are and what we do. And feel free to send us more questions by email. We are going to go on to answer your questions throughout the whole of the term. Hoping to see you very soon again here at the AA. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.